I wish I didn't IPO.
Why?
I feel like I didn't have the right reasons for doing it. One thing I learned is that you just have to trust the process and the evidence that you have and everything. And the truth will prevail. The only way to not get rejected is not try. People were not selling it at the price that was on the rate card, but they were selling it at a much lower price.
So did you finally discover your happiness or your joy? So what's that?
I think the most important thing was that being able to be surrounded by the people who really truly cared for me.
What is the biggest challenge throughout your whole journey?
I think it's all about winning people.
Hey, Tim, Timothy, hi. Finally see you in person.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you so much also for coming to our show, which is called Bounce. Yeah, I know you're very kancheng when you first, when you received the invitations from us because you thought that this interview is going to be conducted in Chinese.
Yeah, because I thought.
No worries, because I feel that content matters. So that's why we shouldn't, restrict our language, for this content. So anyway, you're the founder for Nuffnang.
Yeah.
Because back then, I love to read blogs.
Yeah.
Yeah, for information, back then there's no such things as YouTube, Friendster, Facebook, and so on. So yeah, and that's why I heard about you during back then. So I didn't expect that today, then finally I have a chance that we can actually have this kind of a casual conversation.
Oh yeah.
So, well, I think this is something like you can take it like a journey through time or a memory lane. So it's time for you to refresh your memories a little bit. Do you mind to actually share with us again your journey, like how you actually started Nuffnang and what makes you have that kind of idea back then?
Okay, so I just graduated in 2007. I remember. No, it's actually 2006. I studied in London economics at UCL. Fun fact: the TikTok CEO shows is actually my classmate in London.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so I actually knew him before he
What a
became
small world.
so famous. When I was studying in London, there was before Facebook and all that became a thing. That there were a lot of influencers in the form of blogs, right? And but it's a very big contrast to what it is today. Today, like influencers, content creators, they're very widely accepted.
Yep.
And brands are always approaching them to engage them. But back then, like even those bloggers who had a lot of influence, nobody wanted to work with them or thought of working with them. So then I thought, okay, what if I had this idea where we can collect all these bloggers together and collectively approach the big clients and, build a business out of that. So after I graduated, I started this and it worked out pretty well, better than I expected. And eventually over the next 10 years or so, it grew to a company that was completely bootstrapped. I remember I started it really with 75,000 ringgit from my dad, and then my partner at the time also had 75,000 ringgit. We built it to a company that does all influencer marketing and everything. Today we own also advertising agencies and all that. So it's more like a digital media group now. We did an IPO in Australia in 2015.
Wow, congratulations.
Oh yeah, it didn't do too well post-IPO in terms of stock price, but shortly after then I eventually left the company and sold out shares. So today I don't own any shares in the company anymore. It's now called Example, and but it's still around. It still does pretty well. It did very well during COVID.
I run a startup as well, and to actually get our company listed is most of the dreams of startup owners. Did you actually expect, like one day your company will achieve this milestone, right? And how is the feelings that you actually like, oh, finally, I see my company grow from a baby until such a milestone. So how do you feel?
Actually, I feel like when I first started, I didn't really have a big goal or anything, It's just, I remember when I first graduated, my friends were earning 2,000 plus ringgit a month, working at accounting firms and all that. And I thought, okay, if I can just match that, then I'm happy already, as long as I'm not worse off my friends. So I didn't have this big goals, and it got bigger than I expected. But I wish I didn't IPO.
Why?
Yeah.
Why?
Because I feel like I didn't have the right reasons for doing it. I did it because people were telling me, oh, as an entrepreneur, you build, then you should exit, or you should do a trade sale or list.
Yes.
And, especially back then, it was like, very frowned upon if you have a lifestyle business. But what's wrong with a business that just makes money?
You are right. Because when it really reminds me when I first started my startup Job Majestic, right? So when I start pitching, to all these investors, one of the common questions that always come across, it's, what is your exit plan? Is the company is planning to be listed and acquisitions and so on. But for you yourself, that you already got your company listed, but you actually, if the times can go back, what would you do?
I wouldn't list it lah. I'll just keep it lah. Honestly, like I would love to be able to just keep it.
Wow.
To answer that question, like of course investors will ask you like, what's your exit plan and all that. My point of view is that as long as the company is making money, you will always have people who want to buy it. It's just a matter of price, And you don't even have to sell everything today. I mean, we have, you can sell a minority stake or even overall lah. Today in Colony, our investors have been with us we started 7 years ago. Most of them are family offices with maybe a longer term horizon. And we've got like offers to sell, but they don't seem that they want to because they say the company is growing. And you don't feel pressure to sell if the company generates good cash flow, right?
So what is the main reason when you say that if times goes back, you wouldn't have made that decisions? Like, what's the main reasons that makes you have this thought?
First of all, I think that a company has to be big enough to list. And I really mean big enough. I mean, back then we were pulling maybe 40 million in sales, maybe 3 million plus ringgit in profit, It's and we're growing 35%. And so when we listed, market cap was 150 million, maybe went up to 200 million ringgit. That's just not big enough for a meaningful listing.
So how much do you think is big enough?
I think that for a company to be big enough, you need to have at least like a 20 million PAT, profit after tax, and we were far from that.
I see.
Because it's only when you're that big and you're growing well and you have a very decent sized market cap that you can have institutional investors look at you. That's the only way then you can have a meaningful form of liquidity. And also there's a difference, right? When you list, you have a lot of corporate governance. And what corporate governance does is that they help you protect wealth, not create wealth, So it's harder to take risk, All the risk taking, I think, should be done when you're a private company and you don't have that exposure to like public money and all that. So
I think I sort of got you, but you know what? These days, right, I actually see a lot of businesses and also startups. They all really do a lot of pitchings and sometimes quite desperately to want to get the investments fund from different investors. But actually, when before I interview you, actually I read some of your news, of course, right? I did my homework, and actually I read a news that you actually turned down a lot of investors in the beginning of your journey. You know what? To get people to invest in business is most of the dreams of startup owners, but you actually did the opposite. You actually turned down the investors. Why?
Oh no, actually I got rejected so many times. I definitely got rejected more than I get turned down.
All right.
I think I get maybe can be 100 times rejection for every 5.
How do you face it? Since our talk show, our name is called Bounce. How do you bounce back from the rejection?
I don't take it personally. It's just part of the game, right? If you want to play, I mean, even if when we pitch to clients, not just about investors, right? We lose. Not every client says yes to us. Most clients say no to us, right? But we win the other half, and that's what makes our business, right? So if we don't want rejection, then the only way to not get rejected is not try.
So when you try, you have to prepare that you would actually face this rejection. I also read about the news that is legal disputes,
Welcome to Job Majestic. We're offering free job posting. Simply sign up, post your jobs, and let our AI instantly do the talent matching. Pay only 488 ringgit when you receive relevant applicants. Start hiring with Job Majestic today.
So what's the biggest, lesson or biggest things that you have learned from the whole legal disputes?
I think like in a court case, the truth tends to just prevail, I was always worried like, hey, what if this happens? What happens? What if I say something wrong? I'm in court and I'm being cross-examined. What if I'm like, my words are twisted, But actually one thing I learned is that you just have to trust the process and the evidence that you have and everything. And the truth will prevail. For me, if I'm in the wrong, I won't go to trial because it's.
Understand.
I know that the truth will prevail.
Transitions from Nuffnang to Colony. I believe most of you guys knows that Timothy is actually have a new ventures since few years back, right? Colony. So this is actually a big transition. So what makes you transition this from digital marketing to the Colony? Because these two business concepts are two entirely different things. So why do you actually have this thought, from Nuffnang to Colony?
I guess when I left, I wanted to start something there are three things I felt were the downsides of Nuffnang or my previous business, right? Number one, it was a very people-intensive business. You need a lot of staff.
Yes.
Then the number two was that collection in terms of payment is very slow. It can drag to 90 days to 120 days. So cash flow is always a challenge. And number three, I wanted a business where it's not so dependent on me, that I can be away and the product is the one selling itself.
You can let your team to do the rest.
Yeah, when you're running an agency or something, it's like
you got to be very hands-on.
Yeah, you know, I think one of the Shark Tank judges said before, like, oh, you know, if you're running an agency, it's not, you're not running a business, you're running a service. Because if you're not there, it doesn't exist anymore. Yeah. You know, so I do see some truth in that, you know, and I figured that, okay, whatever I did next, I wanted my next business to fulfill the counter argument for these three things. That means I don't need too many staff. I don't need because smaller teams are easier to manage. Payments should be collected up front, and also that it's really a business that can do without me.
I see.
Yeah. So.
But why Colony?
So I was kind of duped into it, to be honest. You know, I was duped into it because when I first started off at Colony, I thought it was. I first came across co-working when I went to see a friend's space in Jakarta, and he was telling me about this co-working concept and how everyone's going to it, and WeWork was doing it and all that, you know. So then I thought this maybe is interesting, This the model, I like it because it's very easy to understand, right? And it fulfills the three things that I wanted. And you know, so I went to a lot of spaces. Went to Singapore where they had a lot of spaces at the time. You know, I go to all those co-working spaces and they're all like 90% full.
Wow.
Yeah. Then I asked them like, oh, how much what prices they sell at and everything. So when you do a back envelope calculation, it sounds like they're making a lot of money.
Sounds like they are making a lot of money.
So 2 years later, after I started Colony, then I started having to pull out the financials of those spaces I visit, right? And they were all losing money. And it's only then that I realized that what I underestimated was that people were not selling it at the price that was on the rate card, but they were selling it at a much lower price, which means they had no margin. And the second thing was that I didn't foresee that the customer acquisition cost would be so high. Yeah.
And how do you overcome this?
So for us, I guess we were lucky. We just started out like Colony to be like a high-end luxury hospitality-focused co-working rather than the startup-focused and all that. We already started with a very differentiated product, and that helped us, you know, because you have a differentiated product, then we can hold our rates better, you know, and have a advantage.
I think I used to rent a co-working space when I first started job Majestic, and then the pandemic came. 2020. So, and then during that times, I remember because the co-working space, the manager actually purposely called to me and said, would you want to continue and this and that. Then I asked her, so how did this pandemics impact to the business? Then they say, oh, it's terrible. So actually, is Colony facing the same back then?
Colony was worse, more severely impacted than other co-working spaces, because unlike normal co-working space, right, 1/3 of our business comes from event spaces, not just office. So during COVID, these are the two things you don't need: event space and office space. And even though office can still generate some revenue during COVID, essential services and everything, but events completely zero. For almost 2 years, just zero. Like, you know, we can give away the space for free and nobody wants it.
Oh gosh.
So it was very bad for us, lah. You know, I just spent all the time just begging landlords for relief, you know, to try to survive through this period. And we're quite blessed, you know, a lot of landlords we work with were quite kind to us. And I remember then one of our investors were telling us, don't worry about it, you know, if you survive this, you'll come back, you'll be stronger. Wow. You know, but because, you know, if you survive this, all the weaker players will die out and, you know, the market will get better.
Yeah, that's what we always hear about during pandemic.
But I couldn't foresee it then. Back then, I was like, wow, shit, I don't know whether I will be surviving also. You know, I might be one of those that dies. You know, but
then
fortunately...
what make you push through it?
You know, it's like, I think entrepreneurs are like the kind of thing. Yeah. It's not like we are always confident or sure of ourselves. It's just that we're thrown in already and then we have no choice but to keep swimming. And we just don't look down and just keep swimming, right? And I think I just kept doing that. And I guess it turns out to be right because pre-COVID, like this industry was really bad because a lot of people had raised money, the margins were very low, you know, price competitive, and nobody needed to make money. Post-COVID, also, you know, like COVID killed off a lot of the players, and also decline of WeWork made it hard for people to raise money. So suddenly everybody had to make money. So the business became a lot more feasible in a unit economics wise.
So when just now you say that as an entrepreneur, right, we just have to keep ourselves moving forward. Okay, despite of all the uncertainties. I once heard of one of my friends actually said to me that, hey Jess, in order to be successful, you need to well plan. Okay, you need to plan everything. Okay, how do you see this? Like, what is your own belief in order to build a successful business? Are you the kind of persons that always be very careful and do a lot of surveys in every plannings that you do, or how?
I do always go into things when I have a plan, but I also do realize that very few things actually go as planned. So I always have to just make it up along the way after I'm halfway in there. Yeah.
I also understand that you have a few successful ventures before, and just now when before this interview, when we were both sitting in a meeting room, right, I asked you one question. So when you become when you have these, I know that you receive quite some rewards and recognitions and these things. So people actually see you as a very successful and famous entrepreneurs, and you got all this limelight. So do you actually feel that in the beginning of your successful entrepreneurial days, right, people approach you for reasons, or how do you actually manage it? How do you feel it?
Really, honestly, and I'm not trying to be modest or anything, but I don't really think of myself as very successful. In a way, I think I do okay. I think I think I'm at a point where I'm happy in life, but I think there are people who are far more successful than I am.
Yeah.
And so I don't really think of myself that way lah. Of course, when I did start off, I did remember feeling looked down on.
Looked down
often.
on you?
Yeah. Back then when I first started off lah,
How?
And, they were just really, a lot of people are just very arrogant, lancy, to me and all that, and...
Can you describe how lancy they are?
Like just the way they talk to me, and the way they talk to me, the way they brush me off,
Are they your friends, or are they your...
No, just people I dealt with,
okay.
And then, whether it's a potential client I was trying to land, or a potential business partner or something like, over time, when they had the perception that I was doing well, then
they started to look you differently.
Yeah, they did look differently, and okay lah, we're friendly now, but I mean, I'll never forget lah, I'll never forget that feeling lah,
How do you feel back then when people look at you like, you can never make it, the kind of feelings? How do you feel?
I never felt like, oh, I'm going to prove you wrong or anything like that. I've always just felt like, oh, okay, I hope you're not right, and
you see this as a motivation?
I don't really see, I'm not vengeful enough to see it as a motivation, but I think I'm just like, I get it, this is just the way the world works.
You focus back on yourself.
Yeah, and I just need to do it, because I think it's unhealthy for me to want to be motivated because I need someone else's approval.
Yep.
Right?
You don't need validation.
If we do need that, and I can't say that I don't need that. I still need that for my parents and here and there, and my wife and all that. No, but I think I'm trying to disconnect from that. It's a hard process. But I think if we always need validation from someone, we're putting our moods, our energy, our mental health and everything all in the hands of someone else. Right?
Okay, speaking on this mental health issues, we all know that being an entrepreneur is not easy, and as an entrepreneur, we are always expected to be strong, at least to look strong. I know that it's definitely not easy to reveal our vulnerable side to the public, especially. But recently, I also read news about you were struggling with mental health issue. So, can you tell us more about that? How do you first realize that you have this issue?
I think I don't know when I started having it, because for the longest time I was just in denial, because I always thought that in 2020 I was officially diagnosed with mixed anxiety depressive disorder, right? And up to today, that's 4 years ago, up to today I'm still on antidepressants every day. Before that I was always in denial. I always thought depression is just a choice. I'm just choosing to be weak or mentally weak, when I can, And then my wife, thanks to her, she pushed me to go and see a psychiatrist, After I sat down for an hour, I sat down with a psychiatrist and I told her, I don't know, my wife forced me to come, but I'm totally fine, And she said, no, I don't think you look fine, And I know you don't want to hear it.
What are the symptoms like?
I think there's an ability to feel joy. Inability. So that's what I told my wife, Like I told her then, I remember at the dinner table, I said, I don't have depression, I don't feel sad, I just feel the inability to feel joy, happy, but I don't feel sad.
In doing anything?
Yeah, like eating food I like to eat, you know, all this. So I don't feel sad, I don't feel happy.
It's like you don't have any emotions.
Yeah, and I can still function, I can still work and everything, you know what I mean? And then she said, that's what depression is. Depression isn't about feeling sad, you know? And so my understanding of depression was really maybe influenced by what I see on social media. So what I see on social media, you know?
Upset,
and
gloomy.
And, you know, that wasn't my personal experience, you know? So yeah, you know, finally I saw a psychiatrist and then... And I think the most important thing the psychiatrist told me was this, because for me, I'm always about science and facts. And I was like, but is this real? Can it be scientifically proven that this of what I'm facing right now is really because of something biological in my body? She said yes. Then she explained to me it's an imbalance of serotonin in the brain and all that.
I see.
You know, and she explained the science of it. Then I went home, I Googled, I read the science behind it, and that's when I got convinced that okay, fine, it's not a choice. You know, it's just an organ in my body that is not working as well as it should be. You know.
How do you deal with it after from denial to finally acceptance?
Yeah. I think it's a long process. And, you know, I guess it really made me focus also. The blessing that came out of it is that it really made me focus on like what really was important in life.
So what do you think is important in your life? What are the things that is important in your life right now?
So, okay, look, when I couldn't feel joy,
right.
I started doing things that will make you feel happy immediately, right? So I started eating my favorite food and then I started buying stuff. I bought a Porsche, I started buying stuff, right? And none of that made me happier. Nothing. I started spending money and everything, nothing.
Then?
Right? Then I started like just gambling on the stock market, you know?
Then?
Just to feel something, you know? And that made me feel something for a short period of time, but it's just not sustainable because it could go very badly, you know?
So did you finally discover your happiness or your joy? So what was that?
I think the most important thing was that, you know, being able to be surrounded by the people who really truly cared for me and loved me, my wife, my kids, you know? And I feel like that, and that's really what mattered, you know. And at the bottom of it, you know, I felt like, however much or little money, it couldn't save me. You know, if you asked me back then, would I have? I would say, I wish I could pay $1 million just to get rid of this thing. But that wasn't even an option, you know, and that can't be an option. So it's really about the people who around me, and I think that's why it's important, because depression is a very lonely thing.
Journey.
You always feel a burden to everyone else, and you don't want to be around people, you know, and which is the opposite of what you should be doing.
But you see, family support is so important. Yeah, and it helps you to finally discover your happiness and joy, and you finally, you know, get up from it. But choosing it to announce it to the public that you have this issue, it takes courage. Yeah, right. So what makes you decided to reveal it to the public?
Actually, it was a very selfish reason. It wasn't because I was being brave or anything like that. But because once I was diagnosed, I felt very worried. Like, what if people found out? Will my investors lose faith in me? Will my team not want to follow me anymore? And so I remember I was with some friends out one day, and then my friends were just talking about another friend who was going through depression, and then I was like feeling very sensitive towards it, you know. I was like, oh, you know, what if they found out about me? And that added another stress level to me. So I just finally posted about it because I just didn't want to worry about people finding out about it. I just okay, this is it, and then this is me you know, for better or worse, you know. And I'm blessed that we live in a time and age where you know, having mental health issues is a lot more accepting than we did even 20 years ago, you know. So my experience post that was good.
So you feel a sense of relief, right, when you did this announcement.
Yeah.
So throughout your journeys of your different ventures, from Nuffnang, Colony, Jerry, and so on. So can you share with us, like, what is the biggest challenge in business, throughout your whole journey? Do you remember? It can be cash flow issue, it can be, you know, your team, anything.
I think it's all about winning people. You need to be able to, I mean, everything we do, right? We want to win a client over, want to win the right people to work with us, win the confidence of an investor or a banker that's going to give you money. Actually, if you think about it, like, business is all about winning people over, convincing them to sign up to your cause, your purpose, your goal.
So what is the secret? What is the secret of winning people?
I find that for me, it's just being very honest about myself. and my limitations and everything. Being transparent, treating everyone with deep, deep respect.
Yeah.
Willing to call out your own mistakes and own imperfections. I think that's what builds trust. Yeah.
From Nuffnang to Colony. So what is your goals right now? You know, your company already listed, and now you have another new venture. So what's the plan? What's your exit? What is your exit plan? I don't want to ask exit plan. What's the ultimate goal?
For me, I'm just in a phase where I really like what I'm doing, and I want to be able to just continue growing. You know, I'm willing to forego current profit and just reinvest in business. And I'm very kind that our investors allow us to do that. You know, every year for the past 2-3 years has been a record year for us. This year to date, we're up like 40% in revenues and 70+% in EBITDA. You know, I think, you know, and we keep reinvesting everything back and compounding our earnings, right? I just want to see where it goes. I think that already where we are at, there are opportunities for our investors to seek liquidity, right? So even last year, there was a fund that bought out some existing shares from investors, you know, to exit. So I think that, like what I said from the beginning, right, is if you're making money, if you're generating cash, you will always have a buyer. It's just a matter of price. I want to be able to build a company that does things, I guess, our way. Like, we are like we're very generous with our team, I guess. We try to be as kind as we can to everyone, and we have a certain way of wanting to do things and just be honest.
Just be honest.
Just be honest. We have radical honesty in our team and all that, and yeah, you know.
Okay, so I want to ask you, how big is the team size right now?
Okay, so we have 35 people in Colony side.
Yeah.
We just acquired a cafe, F&B operator called Do By Back. So they have 10 people there, and we acquired them not for the cafe. We actually just closed the cafe, and we're going to reopen in end of Q1, maybe Q2, right?
Next year, yeah.
Next year. But we acquired them to do corporate gifting and catering for events. So in Colony, we had like 376 events last year, and we're looking to use Do By Back for the catering for at least some of those events.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'll visit one day.
Yeah.
Nice. I actually find that these days startups cultures is getting very, very common. Yeah. So if you would like to give an advice to the entrepreneurs, especially startup entrepreneurs, what kind of advice that would you actually give?
Just know that everything is temporary, right? Good times are temporary, but bad times are also temporary. So even for me, right, like, you know, past 2-3 years we've been doing quite well, you know, but I'm always very anxious about it because I know that it's temporary. I know a downtime is coming. I just don't know when, and I know that I have to, you know, kind of buckle up and survive that lah. So you know, if we know that everything's temporary, then when we are up, it makes us not feel so overconfident and arrogant, you know, and when we're down, we also don't feel so gloomy. So really, everything is temporary.
There's always a chance to bounce, right?
Yeah.
During a downtime.
Yeah, there's always a chance to bounce, yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Timothy, for sharing so much of your stories.
Yeah.
I love your stories. I always feel that, you know, every setback is actually a setup for a comeback. And yeah, thank you so much for watching us this show's Bounce. And 感谢你们的收听，希望你们每次收听都有收获。Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Bye.